What's up, everybody? My name's Logan, and welcome to another episode of The Dink Show. Today, I am talking to Jason Gao. He is a startup advisor at the GeniusX Accelerator and also a former venture capitalist. And today, we talk through, all about Genius, what they're offering the Cardano ecosystem, what's his background, what led him to the blockchain space, the different stages of governance and how Genius thinks about each, and also use cases that can drive real world adoption for DAOs and DeFi protocols. So I hope you enjoy listening. So welcome to the show, Jason. It's awesome to have
Thank
you
you.
on here. And can we just start by, telling us a little bit about your background and what you do now?
Sure. So my background is quite simple. So I spent, I think, almost the entire last, let's say, 14 years of my career time in the investment industry. Started with the private equity investment in traditional sectors like industrial, transportation. Over time, moved into other sectors like technology, life sciences, and stuff like that. More on the venture side, and I developed my personal interest in the crypto Web3 industry over the last 2 years. Until last year, I decided to professionally move in the industry. So that's how I joined GeniusX. So what I'm doing now here is basically I continue to leverage my experience in the venture side, working with the startup entrepreneurs and help them to grow their startup and ventures and advise them on various aspects on the business, on raising money and everything. And so it kind of fits pretty well to my personal interest in working in the startup ecosystem and work with entrepreneurs and help them with the build successful business. So that's how it's been going.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a big advantage for startups, and I'm sure you work with obviously all the startups at GeniusX, with someone with your experience to help them out and give them a helping hand when it comes to raising money and building a fundraising strategy. Can you dig a little more into what drew you to the blockchain space? What drew you to the crypto space? Why did you want to kind of transition your career to become part of this industry when you're from more of a traditional landscape?
Yeah. So I think it's really it's quite natural, but it's really like a conviction, personal conviction thing. So I knew about Bitcoin, crypto, like for many years, but never really understood until at some point. I think that's where we're in the last bull run. There, like really, there's unprecedented level of amount of people talking around you. But I think just the one point I still recall is one of my friend who's like a very experienced venture investor, angel investor himself, is really talking about that, and he's like sharing a lot of technology side of blockchain. Just unless other people just keep talking, okay, buy crypto, buy Bitcoin. So then I start getting serious. I thought, look, he's talking about that, so that's got to be something in there. So I started researching myself, and I still remember that was also the time when Clubhouse really exploded, and there's a lot of important people talking in Clubhouse. If you still recall, in February 2021, and I got a lot of information there from like people who were experienced in the space, and so I started really building my conviction. I decided to really try, and so did a lot of things many other people did, install open your account in centralized exchanges, and then set up your first crypto wallet, and purchase the first cryptocurrency, and buy the NFTs and participate in all these projects. But during the process, I mean, acting kind of like a degen, but during the process, you can really feel, what that is, what problem it's solving, and what problem it still have as an industry. But I think over time, overall, I really built my conviction. I really feel the advantages it could bring that could really impact our world, or the current system in a positive way. And in terms of like how transactions are done, how systems are being managed by centralized versus decentralized, organizations or that kind of thing. So I really sees a lot of use cases, although we're still early. So
Yeah.
I think that's just too important to get missed out.
Yeah, absolutely. I have great conviction too. I think a lot of my conviction, you touched on this and it resonated with me, is understanding the difference between crypto and people coming into the space because of price speculation, and understanding blockchain and the innovations that the technology truly can bring to the forefront. So how information is being kept track of, how, votes are recorded on a decentralized system, how transactions are made outside of the legacy system, how there's a better source of truth because it's on a system that no central entity controls. I think that's a very subtle but powerful shift for kind of human
Yeah,
society in general. So I have a lot of conviction on this space too. Um,
exactly.
in-
Totally agree.
yeah. Next question, I have for you is, what brought you to Cardano? Because there's a lot of different blockchain ecosystems. Um, all of them are innovating. New applications are being built on. A handful of them. I know that with GeniusX and Genius Yield, and with Clarity and Crystal, the products we're bringing to market with my company, we're building on Cardano. So, what led you to become involved in Cardano as opposed to other blockchain ecosystems, and kind of how do you see the landscape evolving with multiple chains being successful?
Yeah. So very good question. I think the reason goes back to my personal belief of the multi-chain future, or maybe not really multi-chain future, but my personal belief is blockchain is not really going to be multiple ecosystem where there are like people just sticking to the ecosystem just because of that ecosystem. I think over time, as the adoption goes and people will view blockchain really as a technology foundation that help you to achieve different purposes and in real world. So I think from that perspective, and it's really worth looking into different blockchain technologies and understand their strengths and weaknesses and see what's the best fit for them. And I think before I joined GeniusX, I admitted that I knew kind of a less about Cardano than, let's say, Ethereum and other chains that are known to more people. But initially, I think while we start talking to the Genius team and to understand the ecosystem and the project, I started doing more research on Cardano, and there are a number of things that really interested me, which is basically the different kind of technology foundations. Like it's building and it's driven by IOG, and which are some of them are quite unique. And also the other side is the community is really strong that I realize. But in the meantime, the ecosystem is quite new. So it's only started growing as a smart contract ecosystem, I think in late 2021, while there's like a very established loyal community waiting there and having the conviction that Cardano is going to be a strong technology to solve problem, but they're waiting to see the venture ecosystem where the projects are really growing and for them to support, to help, and to interact with, or to become a customer of, and um, and that kind of things. So I just feel there's like more potential opportunities in an ecosystem like this, like with a strong technology and with a strong community. But the ecosystem is relatively still nascent, but obviously with
Yeah,
potential to grow.
yeah. Yeah, for us, when there's always the option as an entrepreneur to build on different blockchain ecosystems, but the way we see it is Cardano has this very strong foundation and this community that cares about, the values that we care about when it comes to decentralization, when it comes to transparency,
Yeah,
and all of those different kind of buzzwords. So really how we think about it is Cardano is kind of an unplowed field. We get the advantage of looking at prior blockchain ecosystems and saying, okay, these are the tools that were built on these ecosystems. This is what succeeded. This is what didn't. So we're starting to see, there's a handful of dexes on Cardano. Pretty soon with Clarity, there will be no code DAO tooling. And then you have, GeniusX, which is, an incubator, an accelerator that helps startups get off the ground within the ecosystem. So you're starting to see a lot of this core infrastructure come into the scene here on Cardano, and I think that's really exciting for the chain. So
yeah, for sure.
definitely, yeah. In terms of real world adoption of blockchain, or really just projects you're seeing right now that you think are good use cases for the technology, what kind of use cases for DAOs, for DeFi protocols do you see being valuable in driving real world adoption for Cardano and the broader blockchain space?
Yeah. So I think speaking of the real world adoption, and it really has to be something that, solve a problem that currently they're not being solved. And so if we link blockchain with like the typical use cases of blockchain with the actual problems that are in our lives, there are a number of things, right? So there are finance, there are like management system, and there are like, all these different things. But I think the key advantage that I really see here with blockchain and also DeFi, and especially if we link to the DAO mechanism, is really that it can help like business that are run, offline and taking a lot of resources in the real world to be repositioned, let's say on chain or online. Maybe on chain is a better world because we're talking about blockchain, and we let smart contract actually control and manage everything, just so that you can cut costs significantly. That for work that would have been done by a lot of human beings here. And so I think that's the real one real strong use case of blockchain. And it can be used potentially by a lot of businesses in the real world, a lot of systems. But then I think we are, that brings us the problem that how you actually manage things, because smart contract is the code that people just, develop. But, over time, as the business grows and evolves, how do you make sure you can always manage everything, on chain? And ideally not by having a lot of human beings involved and let them. So I think that's where I see the value of DAO. So basically, there are a number of angles there. I think I would just cover the very basics because of the time. So basically, I think number one thing is you have to build a business that is completely on chain. It's like trustless. It's managed by smart contract. It's transparent, as many DeFi's are building against the CeFi's, which people have now realized having a lot of problems. And but then you, on the other side, if you want to keep the business remain kind of a transparent, trustless, and not suffering the risk of being potentially manipulated by people and suffering with human errors and that kind of thing, and the DAO structure would be very important for you to implement for those businesses.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to unpack with kind of the on-chain versus off-chain topic. So we'll dive into that a little bit here. So, within the governance process, how we kind of break it up is three different phases. So you have a refinement phase, you have a decision phase, then you have an execution execution phase. So the refinement phase is where a community may introduce an idea, or a founding team may introduce an idea, and it goes on a forum where people can comment on it, or there's a Twitter space where people can, discuss it. So there's all these different tools that these distributed communities can use to start coming to decisions. But then once you get to that decision and execution phase, so how can, really where I see DAOs adding a lot of value is automating decisions made with collective intelligence. So you have everyone that, in a lot of situations hold a governance token, and they get to have a say on the issue or a proposal. And then once that proposal passes, it automatically affects the treasury of the DAO because the vote is stored on chain, and then smart contracts enforce that the governance threshold was met, and it affects the treasury and sends, funds maybe to a project to invest in them or whatever the use case may be. So how do you think about on-chain versus off-chain tooling, and do you see a need for both within a DAO's operations or a DeFi protocol's operations?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So the on-chain versus off-chain. So I think ideally, or the ultimate goal should be everything 100% on-chain, because that means the 100% trustless and there's no human being involved at all. And because as long as there's human being involvement, there would be exposure to human errors, there would be trust issues. And but I think that's the ultimate goal, and how to achieve that, it's a big challenge, a big question. I think in terms of the DAO organization of the structure, it's actually very much similar to how human beings are managing countries or the government systems, because it's the same thing. Basically, it's a very complex society. There are so many people, but who actually manage everything? So you can't have like everybody manage everything, because it's going to be a mess. So then you will create this agency system. It's like people will elect their government, their parties, their the parliament and Congress and everything. But then there would be there will start being some trust issues, but how you actually solve these issues, right? So
Hmm.
these are the challenges. So I think it's for the near future, or until we solve the problem completely, and there has to be a hybrid model. So there will be off-chain
Yeah.
part, there will be on-chain part, because you cannot really make it 100% on-chain unless you make all your activities completely on-chain. But we're human beings, so what we do in real life, you cannot really convert everything on-chain.
Yeah.
But you can try to develop as much as possible, make them on-chain. For instance, we can go cashless when we do a transaction. We can let the smart contract on blockchain control the transaction and the purchase and everything. So something is achievable. Maybe the rest are not, or not that easily, but we should solve the problem step by step. And for those parts we can solve, we can make them completely on-chain. Then we can design the DAO structure to actually manage that. And then coming back to your question on this refinement, decision execution part, if we're dealing with something completely on-chain, then we should be able to achieve this complete ideal DAO system. But obviously, you need to have a great, strong, very strong design, and you need to have like the right smart contract to be able to execute everything. Let's say on the design side, so refinement, when somebody want to make a proposal, there needs to be a curated process. It cannot be anybody can be allowed to just make a random proposal that has to go to everybody for review, because there will be a lot of unserious proposals or uneducated ones that's going to end up wasting people's time. So there needs to be a process. I think that's more about design. And the same thing for decision. Like, how do you let people make decisions? It's like everyone have one vote, or it's linked to the government's tokens they hold in the system. And I think it's more of a design thing. But when it comes to execution, I think it's also a capability. So how do you actually let the smart contract execute everything? Because sometimes the smart contract was written in a way that it cannot be updated from like a very foundational level, because the one who actually wrote the smart contract at the beginning didn't realize that the smart contract could have been completely changed because of the vote or the new proposal. So in this case, who has the power to actually edit the original smart contract? Maybe it's still the developer from the beginning, but then why would people trust the developer to do that? So that would be the problem. It's probably have to be solved with a hybrid model. But I think in the future, there could be ways to solve this, because I think recently everybody was very excited about the AI development in the industry with ChatGPT and stuff. So for
Hmm.
instance, I think it could be possible if the artificial intelligence technology can really evolve and grow, and to achieve very complex problem, we can maybe even let that part handle the refinement, decision, and execution of something very fundamentally different
Hmm.
from the way that the smart contract was designed, at the very beginning. I think obviously it's going to take a long time for us to really figure out how to do this. But I think there is a direction, there could be a vision leading to that point.
Yeah. I think the overarching kind of theme there is that, DAOs are an early type of technology. They're this innovation that some of us see as being a large innovation to organizational structures and how companies and entities, organize themselves and make decisions together. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. The point with the AI stepping in to decrease human involvement is another interesting point. I guess I want to hit on it a little more. Is that when introducing centralization is, you know, a okay, because in my head there's true benefits to decentralization, and there's also true benefits of centralization. But in our legacy systems, there's too much centralization. Decisions are made by very few, which represent a lot of people. So this is kind of a organizational structure that allows for these grassroots movements and these, large groups of people to come together and have a say over a certain, governance topic. So in terms of allowing centralization, I guess one example that I wanted to bring up is Uniswap. So Uniswap is a pretty established DAO. If you don't know what Uniswap is, it's a DAO that surrounds the largest DEX on the Ethereum in the
Yeah.
Ethereum ecosystem. So within their process, their governance process, they have 6 steps, and 5 of them are in the refinement phase. So in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of different tools that are made in order for a community to go from, initial idea to vetted proposal that deserves to be voted on. Because, you can't just clog up the blockchain with a lot of, like, you need to have important votes, especially if they're going to be automatically executed. These need to be votes that the community agrees on, the community has refined, and then it goes to an on-chain vote. So I think this refinement process is very interesting. So one more question I would have for you is, we haven't even really talked about it, but can you tell us more about GeniusX? Can you tell us more about Genius Yield and really what you guys are bringing to the Cardano ecosystem, and why, what type of projects you guys look for to be part of your incubator? Yeah.
Yeah, good. So basically, I think in a nutshell, if I would describe GeniusX, and then I think Genius Yield is part of the same ecosystem, but I would start with the GeniusX, although it's like the second project and we have launched. But we really see what we're building and what we're offering to the Cardano ecosystem is kind of I think the very first and only ecosystem-based venture building and venture financing and venture investment platform. Because again, I commented on the Cardano ecosystem, there are strengths with technology, with community, but what we see really lacking at the moment is the venture building or venture ecosystem. So what that means is that we have a great technology foundation. We have established community that look to support this ecosystem, but we really need use cases to be built by projects, entrepreneurs who have strong ideas of creating something by using Cardano's technology. But I think there are 2 issues. One, ecosystem is very young, so there are not, so many, activities going there compared to the other ecosystem. But the good news, we have a very fast growth speed. I think we achieved 6 times of number of projects growth within a single year of last year. But the second problem is that we have been working with a lot of teams. We talk to many of them. We understand their ideas and what they're trying to build. We have realized there is no kind of a systematic support within the ecosystem to help entrepreneurs who have great idea or who are very good passion of delivering something at the end of the day to really get systematic or organized support to build their ideas into a business, because the 2 things are very, very different. You might have a great idea, but you make a lot of steps. You made a lot of mistakes in the journey and you fail at the end of the day. And we see other accelerators and or other advisory firms, but we don't see anyone who actually provide A to Z support on a one-on-one basis. So either someone who give you some advice here and there, or it's someone who is organizing a very massive kind of workshop models, group-based. It's like, the very big accelerators, they have no focus on any of the startups, but they focus on the group always. So people join there and feel it's kind of a tour. And but we took a different approach. We really work with the project where we really see the execution capability of the team and the right product market fit they have developed out of their idea. And we provide everything, within the ecosystem, from tokenomics, marketing, legal, technical development, fundraising, and ISPO and everything, because we started ourselves within Cardano. We know everything in the ecosystem. We have confidence to be able to do a lot of things for them. So we think that's really needed to actually turn the many ideas or the number of projects built on Cardano into projects live on Cardano. So that's our goal, to increase the conversion rate for the ecosystem. And we're working with 20 startups right now. We're in the process of onboarding more. So it's much less compared to big accelerators. It's because we want to stay focused. We want to create value with everyone we work with. The second part is that from community perspective, and I think many of them are ADA token holders, or basically all of them. And many of them have the eager to basically support those projects in ISPO or in token sale, whatever way, and or as users, as participants, as testers. But we think the community really deserve like quality, curated, let's say deal flows or project flows for them to focus their limited resources or energy on. And there are so many projects, and we see projects who raise the money from community but stop delivering. We see projects who didn't really plan the right things but still get community support at the very beginning, but couldn't um, finish their journey with like a completed product that really impact the ecosystem. So we also view what we're contributing to the ecosystem is we want to bring really high quality projects in front of the community members and explain to them why they're good, why they're high quality, how we assess them, and what they have done to help them to make educated decision by themselves to support, whether it's in ISPO, where it's in public token sale. So we have the accelerator. Within the accelerator, we organize the ISPO for certain projects, and we also have a launch pad. It's by the way, it's the ecosystem's very first order booked launch pad that's completely non-custodial and can deal with oversubscription and all these different features that are not provided by current incumbents. And but we're going to present projects through the launchpad, through the accelerator to the community based on very concrete due diligence analysis. And many of them, we have worked with the projects, we work with the founders, we diligence them, we did the background check. And we hope the community can stay focused on really screened or well curated projects to support with their own efforts, with their own even financial resources. So that's what we see we're building. We're really bringing to the ecosystem, to the community as GeniusX. And
Yeah.
Genius Yield, obviously, it's kind of a secondary market part of the ecosystem. So that's going to continue to help the projects after public token sales stage, providing liquidity and kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, there's great value in this. There needs to be champions of the ecosystem, and I certainly consider GeniusX as one of those. For me, it's one of the best incubators and accelerators on Cardano because you guys are very focused on bringing quality projects to get live on mainnet. And that's what we need. We need more applications. We need more decentralized applications to launch so that we can have more options for users and more utility for users. So that's really exciting. Last thing we'll touch on here, I know we're close on time here, is Clarity and GeniusX and Genius Yield are working closely together to build non-technical DAO infrastructure. So, we're talking here about, on-chain infrastructure that takes care of the on-chain decision-making and the on-chain execution phase. So before a project is ready to implement on-chain governance, I think there in my head there needs to be a good plan in place. You should have your token distributed. Your community should understand what's being voted on. So as Genius Yield or Genius DAO comes to fruition, do you have kind of an idea of how community members will be involved, what types of things they'll be voted on? Do you have any information that you can share about how this DAO will behave for the community members?
Yeah. So I think speaking of our own project, and I think we're still working on that. I don't think we actually have anything completely finished that we're ready to announce. So I would just suggest the community to really stay tuned for our announcement because we always try to be, careful. We don't want to just talk about something, but then we underpromise. We really want to work everything out, like about that process because we've been working on that like every day and night together. And so I think I would rather recommend for the community to stay tuned to watch for our announcement. But I think on a general level perspective, and what we want our own DAO to become is basically kind of the best in class or in the industry that we can achieve today. And so there will be like a rigorous refinement process that a community member can be involved in a very efficient way. Like we touch upon this curation process, like you also mentioned about the Uniswap example. And also, the second thing, we will make sure everything is on chain, it's trustless. So in terms of the voting of the decision making and how things are being executed after the decision is made, is all going to go through on chain. So there will be no trust issue. Smart contract controls everything. The code is, transparent and public. Everybody can vet. But obviously, I think in the short term, maybe there could be some hybrid models, as I just explained, because fundamentally it's going to be very difficult for human being teams to imagine everything that could happen in the future. But I think we will try to develop a process to refine and improve not only the product itself, I mean the Genius product itself, but also the Genius DAO infrastructure, and to keep updating that and get closely, maybe slowly, but over time, getting as much close as possible to the ultimate point that we try to get everything or as much as possible to be determined by our DAO members, and with the efficient but complete involvement of them in terms of the refinement and decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, us, the team at Clarity is very excited to be working with you guys on this DAOification process. We're going through it ourselves as well. There's a lot to think about. You got to make sure your
Yeah,
constitution is out. You have to make sure you understand, what's the scope of the decisions that's going to be up to the community at first, and then throughout time, what's the DAO roadmap look like? So I know that we're thinking a lot about that together and excited to get that process going.
yeah.
Well, that's all the questions that, we're wrapping up here. Do you have any questions for me, just to pick my brain? It can be about anything. You can put me on the spot. Or do you have anything else you want to discuss before we kind of adjourn this meeting?
Yeah, maybe just one question for you, Logan, because I think uh, we see what you're building is very important, because it's not just a tool at the end of the day. I think it's more, because speaking of DAO, it's also about the design. So how you really design something to solve a very complex problem. I think even human beings are not ready to solve this completely, because look at the government system, the legislation, everything system in any countries, and there are always flaws and maybe pros and cons here and there. But what's your view of for Clarity DAO, of thinking more about the design and the process, because sometimes it's not about how you use some tools to achieve something, but how you actually design the system first. Obviously, it's a very difficult question, but I just am curious about your plan of how to move step by step on this question.
Absolutely. So, you know, throughout the last 7 months, we've been talking to a lot of projects and trying to understand, how they make decisions as a community, what type of infrastructure will they need. So the first thing is the refinement period. So what we're actually launching a product today on January 31st. It's like Snapshot, but on Cardano. So it's a lightweight snapshot voting app where users can come connect their wallet, and then their voting power within within a governance portal of that specific project is dictated by the policy ID. So we see this as being a cool tool for getting community engagement involving the refinement of an idea. Now, when we
Great.
talk about the design of the system for the on-chain infrastructure, we're using Agora. So this was a very deeply thought out about decision of what base infrastructure to use. So Agora is a open source governance protocol for Cardano projects. And Agora enforces some rules on chain. So rules that it enforces on chain is how much of the governance token do you have to have staked to a DAO in order to be able to create a proposal? What is the threshold for a proposal to pass and affect the treasury? How much of this governance token needs to vote in favor of a proposal? And then, it also enforces the timelines of the proposal process for a DAO, so a DAO can customize this. And really, when we think about the infrastructure we're building, what we're making sure is that our MVP is the bottom layer, the foundation. So we're building foundation on an open source protocol that we think is like bedrock. Okay. And then on top of this, we know that, some DAOs will want to have treasury swaps. Some DAOs will want to remove value from their treasury and send it to multiple different wallet addresses. So how Agora works is that after a proposal passes, it can run any Plutus script. So it doesn't have to be just the treasury withdrawal where it goes from the treasury to a wallet address. It can go from the treasury to an escrow account to a wallet address. It can, not be removed from the treasury until an Oracle point. So you can really get as, expressive as you want with the treasury effects with Agora, because everything on chain is, it sees the governance threshold. If that vote passes, then there's another smart contract that can run, and anyone can, contribute one of these smart contracts within the Clarity infrastructure, which is quite cool. So it's
very interesting.
so it's a modular system where you can stack smart contracts on top of this base infrastructure, so we can continuously innovate with our community. And the other thing is that these governance rules that are set and enforced by the smart contracts, you can just fill out an online form to have a proposal to update these governance parameters. So this is to say, if there is a too high of a approval threshold and proposals aren't getting passed, then you're able to go in, change this governance rule so that your community can pass proposals. So yeah, that's how we're thinking about it. I mean, in short, it's really just a modular system, because we know, this is core infrastructure for the Cardano ecosystem. People need on-chain governance to operate as legitimate decentralized projects and have automatically executing proposals based off on-chain voting. We see this as part of the Cardano ecosystem that a lot of projects can leverage to become truly decentralized and really engage their community. So we're making it a modular system that can be continuously upgraded.
Very cool. Yeah, good to know that, and congratulations for the launch of the product today. And I think as a Genius team, we look forward to continue to work with the Clarity DAO and your
Awesome.
team.
Yeah, no, we look forward to working with you guys together. There's a lot of things we actually have in the works. Just had a cool call with Val and Marvin yesterday. So we're excited to keep integrating and building this ecosystem with you guys, so that we can create an environment where entrepreneurs can have a real shot at, having an idea, getting the resources they need to get it live on mainnet. So that's what we're here for. I think that's what you're here for, and can't wait to continue building this ecosystem with Genius Yield and GeniusX.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jason.